Hey everyone, and welcome back to Pro AV today. Today's discussion is one I've been looking forward to having for a while, and especially coming out of shows like NAB and obviously Infocom. One of the major takeaways is that you're seeing a massive evolution in the channel and the way that really AV products and broadcast products have been distributed over the last 30 years. One of those ways is really finding ways for integrators and value-added resellers to create more value outside of just being an actual distributor of product. So I wanted to dig in a little bit more today and ask some questions really about that and ask an integrator specifically how the day-to-day has evolved. So brought on Kevin Henneman, president over at KMH Integration. Kevin, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Well, Kevin, we talked about it just a second ago, but obviously the role of the integrator has shifted significantly, right? Not only from a distribution standpoint, but now there's requirements of customer service. You have conversations like AV as a service, things like that as well. Just to kick us off, what are some of the ways that you've already seen your day-to-day change over the last probably 3 to 4 years, maybe compared to even 10 years ago?
So that's a great question, Ben. And there has absolutely been a shift in an increase in what is being expected of the classic systems integrator. Yesterday, I had 3 phone calls, 3 different customers, all 3 of them asking me if we could actually staff their shows. Put a chief engineer in the room, in the control room, put a TD on a switcher, an A1, not the actual, obviously producing the show, that's them, but that is a big change. And I've seen this happening over the last couple of years where it's kind of heading in that direction. Maybe COVID helped drive some of that, I'm sure, but that's been a major change to what we're being looked for now, looked at for to provide those kinds of services, which we can. So as an integrator, I've had to sort of constantly monitor that shift or that changing tide, if you will. I see that our customers are looking for more of there's a lot of, these overused phrases these days, but turnkey now means consult, develop the requirements, design, build, procure all the equipment, test it, commission it, train them. And now it means, and it used to mean, support them, right? So if there's a technical problem, they give you a call, they send you an email, fill out a ticket, whatever. Now it's, hey, can you provide the staff to actually execute the show for us? And that's a little different, I'm telling you, that was yesterday. And these are not, I can't divulge exactly who they were, but these are major, major people saying, hey, we need help with this. Can you help? And fortunately, our organization has seen that kind of coming over the last few years. So we've got some strategic relationships with people. I mean, we don't staff TDs necessarily, but we've got some partners that we've done work with for other customers over the years. And it's just a bit of taking that next step with them to say, okay, let's get an MSA in place. Let's get a contract going. Let's start to offer this as part of our upfront services proposal. So. That's a big change.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, especially kind of in the broadcast side, being able to provide that value, right? Because a lot of times, you're right, clients need just help and assistance, and they need that scalability, right? And, that is one of the things that I love to see about the way that you guys have worked, right? And a lot of other successful AV integrators, installers have kind of updated the way that they're working, right? Because when you look at whether it's a more educated end user base, whether it's accessibility of being able to go to the Amazons, the B&Hs of the world and kind of make your own installations as an end user, the role of the integrator has shifted more from almost the middleman pass through. We're the only ones who can get the gear and install it for you, to having to provide a lot of that value, right? One thing I'll bring up is the idea of AV as a service or integration as a service. You talked about obviously staffing being one of the ways that you're creating long-term value and retention. What are some of the other ways, whether it's support, whether it's training? Have you seen that shift impact you guys directly?
So, yeah. Well, I guess I'll back up a little bit and state that when I started doing this, which was a little while ago, I came at this from the broadcast integration side. So my background was designing and building recording studios, audio recording studios, and then that progressed into video production and editing systems. And the approach that I learned as I moved through, as my career progressed, was that there's a project, there's a scope of work, there's an operational requirement, and you're going to design, get the gear, put it in, and you're going to build that system, and then turn it over to the customer, and then they have a happy life, and that's it. And you may talk to them again, and so that goes back a few years, but that is long gone, long gone. And if you couple that with, and back when that was a reality, that sort of approach of a start here, stop here, and you're done. Back then, the technology was such that it was there's a clear delineation between AV and broadcast. That also is long gone, long gone. There is no more like, oh, we're going to build a conference room and we need some Crestron or Extron or whatever, and we want a projector, or let's say a theater. We just finished a very large project. I guess I can talk about it. News 12, where they extended our contract to now include their executive auditorium, and that's already tied into their broadcast facility. These are things that, like, I would say to people when we're planning a sports project. Let's say they got a stadium, they've got the headquarters for the team. One of the first things we talk about is like what existing connectivity do you have? Where's the fiber? Like how much fiber? What kind of fiber? And because you could see coming for years that there was going to be a sharing of content, a sharing of operational workflow. So I would say that what we have seen is that with the technology, sort of, and a large part that's due to the proliferation of IP, audio and video over IP. You've got a network that exists already. And if you can parse it out properly or segment it out properly, you can run AV, audio, video, and or broadcast systems on there. You've got, protocols like SRT and NDI that makes that part of it much more. I won't say super easy, but it's a lot more accessible. Those workflows now are a lot more accessible, and you'd be remiss not to be able to talk about that with your customer and say, keep this in mind. You might not have the budget to do this right now, but we need to plan for it. We were just down at a very large university Wednesday, and we're starting a small TV channel upgrade for them. But part of the discussion was about the bigger project, which is more buildings being tied together, more it's an educational facility, so there's a little bit of that factor there too. But it's what I've seen is the merging of the AV and the broadcast technology, and it's really kind of being driven by the IP workflows that are available. So for us, it's we have to at least address it with our customers so they're aware of it. But hope that answers your question, Ben. I'm not sure if I drifted too much from that, but
It no, it does, and you bring up a really good point, and I want to ask: would you say that that's kind of contributed to the death of the what I'll call the specialty integrator or the hyper specific integrator? And if so, what are some of the ways that you've seen integration firms, partners find ways to learn and evaluate and sell some of that new technology? Is that through hiring? Is that through training? What are some of the ways that you've seen people adapt outside of that specialty world?
Right. That's a great question. Great point. Well, for us, I mean, look, I personally have always, I mean, I love the technology. I love to build things, and I love to see all those shiny lights come on, and those images come up, and you hear the audio. I love that. It's just I was always into that. So what I see happening is that, or for us, it's so. Given that statement I just made, my team, my company is constantly. I mean, I've always encouraged everybody that works for us, like, listen, you work 8 hours a day. you got your lunch or whatever, take an hour out of every day and just do a little research. Take a little, like, it's okay. Don't worry you're going to get in trouble because you're not cranking out the latest deliverable or whatever, because we know that the technology keeps evolving, and you have to. I'm also trying to create an environment where people enjoy that. You get you get hooked on it. Like, oh, here's the cool new piece of software that does this or does that, or so for us, that's how we've kind of addressed that. And you raised a good point. There are specific. I mean, I don't know about the death of a specialty integrator, but you're right though. You really, at least in our world, you really can't. You have to be well versed in anywhere or any way that content can be captured and distributed. It's a far reaching. It's much more far reaching these days. And it can sound daunting, but actually, I think because of the technology, it isn't so daunting. I mean, there's been a huge evolution in MAMs, media asset management, and that. So if you shoot something on your iPhone or your Android or whatever, and that is just as important or just as valuable as what's done in a large TV studio with very expensive cameras that is produced a different way. But it all matters and it all counts. So for our perspective, from our perspective, it doesn't matter. It's all content that needs to be accessible. And what we're seeing is that at least you and I are talking about the role of the integrator here. We have to be able to be well versed in those workflows, because that's what they may not know exactly what video format is the proper format to have available for this kind of distribution or that kind of distribution, whatever. But that's what they're looking to us to do. And more so, they don't care about that. They just want to say, look, I have a group of people, their social media, they're going to shoot this stuff, and I want that to be available to either our linear broadcast or linear distribution or OTT. It doesn't matter. And it's not a big secret, but from us, from an integrator standpoint, we have to be well versed in all of that. So I would agree with you that, like what I described, how my career started, that's gone, way gone. It's no more where for us, we're not seeing that. People are bringing us in more and more upfront to do the architectural planning, the and everything else that goes with that, acoustics and air conditioning and things like that. But we're actually becoming a part of their operational workflow. They're leaning on us for that, and it doesn't matter whether it's conference rooms or TV studios, post-production editing. It's all needs to work together, which is, I guess, if you want to, another integration. Well, there you go, and make it all work together. So that's something that we've seen change over the last, like you said, 3 or 4 years. Yeah, absolutely. We're being brought in more frequently right up front. And the kinds of conversations we're having. I mean, I was on one yesterday with a again, I can't say who it is, but a multi-group work groups, I'll call them, media outlets, all under one big umbrella. And, we're talking about some podcast content, and I'm like, yeah, but this should be accessible. Are you telling me now that you're never going to want to be able to pick up that podcast content and then repurpose it through that other entity that you work with that's under the one big umbrella? That's kind of, if you're not thinking along those lines, you're kind of being a little irresponsible. And there's all kinds of business things related to that. Like, well, we don't have that kind of a deal in place. Okay, but from the technology side, you don't want me to be telling you in a year when that business relationship changes and now you're going to share your content that, well, you can't do that because we never wired the fiber in, or we didn't plan the switch sizing properly, or whatever. So that's a big part of what we've been doing, is trying to forecast the future a bit for our customers.
Yeah, and Kevin, I want to go back to a point you mentioned a little bit earlier in that answer, which was the role of kind of learning and always finding ways to educate yourself. And specifically, one of the groups that's done that almost autonomously and done that on their own is a lot of times the end user, right? So the end user in many cases now has a much better idea of what they're looking for, even preferred technology vendors, things like that. How have you seen the end user kind of drive a lot of those changes in the channel, not only from a capability standpoint, but from a function and an actual technology standpoint?
Well, so that's another great point. The Okay, so again, not to keep rehashing the
Rehash it.
my career. Yeah. Well, look. There was always a look. The major networks. They have a lab, right? So then they had dedicated engineering resources that their job was to evaluate new product, evaluate new technology, new product, new workflows, even, and build those. You want to call it a POC, a proof of concept, or whatever, or just put a piece of equipment on a bench and test it. How does it work? Does it do what we need to do? I've seen that approach been reduced a little bit, in the classic sense of a maintenance shop or a maintenance lab or a broadcast lab. What we do see happening is there are, like we did for another large broadcaster, we built for them. It was there. We kind of co-designed it together, but the idea came from them, which was to basically put all different types of OTT platform devices in a room, get them connected, get them working with monitoring and diagnostic software, I'll call it, and basically run tests to see what kind of content works well on this platform or on that platform, and what types of infrastructure will support those devices and those workflows. So I'm so what I've seen, Ben, is I've seen that it's still the same approach where the end user is investing their own time and effort. They have to. But that's traditionally, or what I've seen is that is the more the larger type entities. Some of the smaller ones, and by small I don't mean tiny. I just mean they're not the major networks, let's say, but these are still people that are producing very powerful content. They're really relying on us for that. So what we did a couple of years ago was, when I think right before COVID, about a year before COVID started, actually, we had put our heads together here and we said, well, look, I've always been a big fan of, we get demo equipment, or we do the same thing. We evaluate the equipment, right? But we went a couple of steps much further than that, and we actually built what we called our streaming lab, which we gave it a name as Marquee. It was basically a NDI, SRT, Dante based software-based production platform that tied in to what we were calling our remote field packs, which is not a new thing for people, but basically it was a PTZ style camera, IFB microphone, and a management layer, a management piece of software running on a souped up laptop in the field, and those would tie back to our streaming hub, our Marquee production platform. We demoed that for a number of different customers, and so when you ask, how are we vetting out, or how are the end users and or us, that's what we're doing. We had multiple customers come here to get a demo on it. In fact, that's a project I can talk about. Is we worked with the Lapine Group, but basically it was the Puerto Rican Traveling Theater in New York City, the Apollo Theater. I'm sure you've heard of those guys. And we're currently doing 2 other projects under that same umbrella. And we're using that technology that our lab actually proved out, because I've always believed that I'm not going to just wave my hand and go like, oh yeah, it works fine, don't worry about it. Our engineers and our people got a chance to actually learn it, see it, touch it, and you find out the little nuances of it that either will work for a customer, maybe won't. So that's what we did. We invested some of our own money. We partnered with some manufacturers. We built it, we tested it, and we've had people come here and go, all right, that's what I want to do. On the end user side, I think that concept is still there, but it has changed. I think the putting a rasterizer or something of that nature on a bench and running it through an oscilloscope. I don't think that's happening too much anymore. But having a software development lab like we did that was Viacom was the other guys, where we built that room for them, co-designed it and built it, and it was specifically done just to allow them to test their apps and their content on different devices and through different styles, I'll say, or I don't want to say use protocols, I guess, but that's probably accurate, protocols as well. Just test the workflows out to see if they launch something, some new portal to get content. Is it going to work on an Android? Is it going to work on an iPhone? Is it going to work on a Mac Mini or a small PC or something? Or how well will it work? So that's what it's shifted to. I mean, I guess it's the same thing, but it's focused on the IP workflows more than at least when I started with again putting a scope, is putting on something on a bench and plugging in color bars and analyzing it that way. Which by the way is an interesting thing that people don't really do too much anymore. Like actually run bars through something and go, is this system aligned properly? It still happens, but that's a big change too, Ben. Is I hate to say it, but there are not people that coming into the business that learned that. So there's a lot of like, hey, it just needs to get to my phone or my tablet or my desktop, and if the color looks a little off or this or the other thing. The level of scrutiny and analyzing that would go into a broadcast signal. That's still happening at the high-end broadcasters, but there's a lot of people. Content is king. Get it out quick, get it out fast, and as long as people can see it, it doesn't lock up, and they can hear it. That's they're happy. So I don't want to say that the level of quality has dropped, but there's a much greater tolerance for that. So anyway, we believe in. I don't want any of our people talking to customers and not saying. I want them to be able to confidently say, like, "Yep, we know how that works, and we you know it. And if you want, come back to our office and you can see us demo it. We have the Hop Hog office and the Brooklyn office, and we routinely run that test for people and say, hey, look, here's somebody on our field pack system in Hop Hog, and they're connected to the production system, the production hub in Brooklyn. And look, you can talk to them. There's IFB, there's you hear the audio and latency tests, all those things. We did a pretty big demo for ESPN from Connecticut. We set it up there, and they were kind of blown away by that. Now, that's not, just to be honest, that's not something, at least to us as an integrator, that is like, wow, this is top secret stuff that's going on. But when people see it happen in front of them, their mind starts spinning like, well, wait a minute. And somebody had said to me a few years ago, so, well, that's the death of satellite and the death of, companies like, the Switch, or, where they have all this fiber, all these fiber hops and all that. No. That never happens. What happens is that it becomes yet another tool in the toolbox. And, there are certain things, certain tolerances of, yep, that IP delivery will work just fine for us. This major event, the Super Bowl or something, no, we're not going to trust the internet for that. We're gonna do that. Although that's also been that landscape has been shifting, where it's getting more and more reliable to do the IP type delivery, for remotes and things. So anyway, hopefully that's not too much of a long-winded answer.
No, the good thing about it was a long answer, but it was informative, right? And I think that sometimes that's a perspective that we tend to lack from time to time as a community, is understanding how the marriage of the integrator in the business and the end user kind of comes together, right? So I appreciate your context with that. Kevin, I feel like we could have this conversation for probably 3 or 4 hours. But look, we may even have to have you on the show again to dig in a little bit deeper. But I love really the way that you talked about really the merging of not only the broadcast and AV worlds, but the IP worlds, and really the role that is constantly evolving, right? There's always ways to continue educating, creating value for your clients. And I appreciate you sharing some of that expertise with us today.
Ben, thank you. I really appreciate you having us on. It's yep. I can go on forever, but we don't want that.
Look, we'll let you talk as long as you want to. But Kevin Henneman, president over at KMH Integration. Kevin, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Ben. Have a great day.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in today. Be sure to watch next time.